Hello, everybody, and welcome to Wednesday. And holy Dinah, we have a winner. I suppose you could call Karen Read a winner. Although if I were in court and I heard guilty of operating, under the influence of alcohol, I would think I was a loser. But if I were facing murder and maybe the rest of my life in prison, I would be hugging my team of attorneys as well. If you are just catching up, my friends, it is over. The proverbial you-know-what lady has sung. And I would not say that Karen Read is that you-know-what lady, but man, yeah, wipe your eyes of the tears. That is a winner chicken dinner. Holy, I swear to you, I thought that I would be bringing you a hung jury this week after yesterday, but today it is hugs and Thrillsville. I'm thinking that Karen and those attorneys and maybe her family are out for some dinner somewhere, although I don't know where she could go, where she'd have a moment of peace at this point. Yeah, so there you go. Out onto the steps of the courthouse like a rock star, sign of the horns, like what? I could not believe this as I watched this today, guys, live. This was pure insanity. And the reaction outside was to thousands and thousands. Like there were so many people out there, and mostly it was a sea of pink. And a sea of pink meant Karen Read supporters who were all thrilled about this result. I'm going to go into all the details about it. And then the whole question, which is, what about John O'Keefe? What about justice for John O'Keefe? Is there going to be an investigation now, right? Talk about that in just a moment. Also, there was action in the Coberger trial today. So the whole thing is the Dateline episode, just, everybody's heads popped off. When Dateline aired this massive expose of what's coming up in the case, evidence and video and all that, the judge in the Coberger trial lost his mind, understandably, and the defense attorney, the head pop happened even bigger. She wants more time. She wants more time to figure out what she's supposed to do about this jury poisoning, as she calls it. But she also gave us a clue today. And that clue was as to what is going to happen if she doesn't get more time. She's literally saying, I cannot do my job properly if I do not get more time. And she's threatening what she's going to do if she has to appeal. It is a fascinating strategy. I'm going to break it all down for you in just a moment. And Bryan Enton is there live, so you're going to get the, firsthand account. And then, I don't know if you remember this, but it is hard to forget. We talked about this woman in Illinois, teacher, who was accused of having sex with one of her students. I know you've heard the story before with all sorts of different teachers, but this one was caught in her driveway on a body cam while her husband was in the passenger seat. And she's all, what? I don't get it. Well, today, guess what? There wasn't just what was going on here. There were 45 other what moments that she's going to have to face. And some text messages and some video evidence that the prosecutors, well, listen, how about this? The judge said horrifying. Okay, that should tell you everything you need to know. I'm going to tell you how many more and why charges this woman is facing, and some of the evidence they unveiled today, which is like ick. Okay, but I'm going to start here. For the first time in 3 years, 4 months, and 16 days, Karen Read is going to go to bed tonight and lay her head down on the pillow, not formally accused of causing the death of her boyfriend, John O'Keefe. And here is the moment in court when she learned what the rest of her life was going to be like today.
Murder in the second degree. What say you? Is the defendant at the bar guilty or not guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman? So say you?
Charlie.
No. Do you agree?
Yes.
Do all of you agree?
Yes.
Thank you. 002. What say you? Is the defendant at the bar not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
Of?
Is not guilty or guilty of that charge or any lesser included charge?
Lesser included.
Thank you. Specifically, number 5, operating under the influence of liquor by operating a motor vehicle with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or greater. Correct?
Yes.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
Guilty.
So say you all?
Yes.
003. What say is the defendant at the bar leaving the scene after accident resulting in death? Is the defendant not guilty or guilty?
Not guilty.
So say you, Mr. Foreman?
Yes.
So say you all?
Yes.
Could you hear the roar? I would tell you about that in a second, but that's the jury in Karen Reed's retrial putting to rest any concerns that they themselves stirred up a day ago that they might deadlock, exactly the way her first jury did last year. As you heard, the jury 2.0 acquitted Karen Reed of everything except the least serious charge that was in front of them, and that charge is operating a vehicle under the influence, for which Judge Beverly Cannoni gave her a single year of probation. That is a standard sentence for that charge, same as any other first-time offender, which means no jail, just, watch your P's and Q's while you're out there for a year. And just like that, as they say, it was over. There was actually a bit of a hiccup, though. Just before this moment, the jury said that they'd reached a verdict, and then they said, oh, hold it, we spoke too soon. They weren't done after all. And then they made everybody freak out for 15 minutes, and then I said, no, we've got the verdict, it's for real. And while Karen was welling up with tears, like you could see her hands were shaking as she was wiping out the tears there was an audible roar that you could hear outside the courthouse. From in that courtroom, you could hear the roar when the verdict was read from those hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of supporters who were all outside. This is the scene. It was madhouse. It was just crazy. It was pandemonium. And when the former defendant, now free and clear, stepped out onto those courthouse steps to resume her life, there was absolute bedlam. Yeah, look at that, like rock star. With her father and her lead attorney at her side, Karen Reed thanked her incredibly devoted and vocal band of believers when she took the mic.
I just want to say two things. Number one is I could not be standing here without these amazing supporters who have supported me and my team financially and, more importantly, emotionally for almost 4 years. And the second thing I want to say is no one has fought harder for justice for John O'Keefe than I have and my team. Thank you.
And that brings me to the mystery attached to any murder case that ends in acquittal. If Karen Reed did not kill John O'Keefe, who did? We know what Reed and her defense team and her legions of supporters think, that O'Keefe was killed by one or more fellow cops at a house party the night before John was found frozen in the snow, and that those same people set Karen Reed up as a scapegoat. Tonight, Team Karen has a new rallying cry, and that is, quote unquote, justice for John, which they say they hope will pressure the DA into reopening the investigation into his death. So stay tuned. But right now, I want to bring in NewsNation national correspondent Marcus Exposa, who has been at the courthouse for all of this. It's a lot quieter now, Marcus. I saw you in that crowd earlier today interviewing. Holy cow. Just take me to that moment and what it felt like to be in it, what it sounded like, what it looked like. Just take me there.
Yeah. Ashley, good evening. Great to be on. Here's the thing. You mentioned Rockstar a couple times, and I basically compared it to a sporting event when somebody scored basically the game-winning touchdown. When she walked down those steps there, it was a huge eruption, a bombastic celebration of the fact that Karen Reed had been acquitted of those serious murder charges, and it was constant. It did not stop in 5 minutes. It was something where they began singing, they began chanting, there were pictures being taken. It was really just that part in particular. I have never been a part of a trial where so much fanfare has been a part of the defendant there. And then just the fact on the Karen Reed part real quick, she was so interactive with her supporters every single time she would get out of her SUV just on the corner there and then come and walk up the steps. She took her time. She addressed her supporters every single time, would blow kisses to her supporters. I mean, this was a very interactive and very just communicative defendant, which is definitely odd when you're considering the fact that she was on trial for murder of her boyfriend and that she could spend the rest of her life in prison. So just some insight on that. It was certainly surreal to be a part of when that verdict came down.
Well, I'll tell you what, Marcus, a couple of times in my career, I have had that same experience. OJ, for one, that was pandemonium when he had a not guilty verdict. Casey Anthony, pandemonium when it was a not guilty verdict. Jodi Arias, pandemonium when it was a guilty verdict. So it's just sort of amazing. But there were two sides there today, and I know you had a chance to talk amongst the crowd. What was the prevailing wisdom among the people you interviewed?
Yeah, so a couple points I want to hit on there. Really, 99.9% of folks here, and there were hundreds of folks here. They've been here since last week, been here basically since this entire thing started, and then definitely here for the retrial. But 99% of the folks here were Karen Read supporters. I spoke to one of them live during that verdict news, basically minutes after it happened. There were tears around me. People were hugging each other, and they were crying and just basically embracing one another. And I asked somebody just minutes after that verdict came down why they're here and what brought them to support Karen Read so extensively. Here's what she had to say.
I've been out here since November 22. Okay, we were right from the beginning when they started doing all the pre-trials, and we were here last year, and I stand out with the movement, and I also stand out on a bridge by myself for a year and a half. Because I believe in justice for John O'Keefe. My brothers are all police officers, and I believe in honest police officers, and that's what I stand out for.
Did you happen to know the Read family in any way, or Karen?
No.
And so a lot of people hear that and say, why are you out here supporting a stranger?
Right. I'm out here because I'm standing for justice, because that could have been me. I could have gone with my brother to an after party and something could have happened.
And Ashley, from my observations here since being here since mid last week, there were very little anti-Karen protesters here, at least in person. What we did see at one point was a van drive by with a cardboard sign inside of the window that said guilty for Karen Read. That is the single moment that we saw as far as like anti-Karen Read opposition, but overwhelmingly it was supporters of Karen Read, their insistence that she was innocent, and that was really what you saw when you heard that eruption from inside the courtroom. My producer, Jonathan, who I'm looking at right now in front of me, who did an excellent job inside, he said it was hard for him to even hear the verdict inside the courtroom because out here it got so loud. So it was really pandemonium. Bedlam, you mentioned, is a great way to put it. It was just unlike anything I had seen in quite some time.
Yeah, you could hear it on the mics in the courtroom. You could hear the business outside as soon as the verdict came down. And by the way, Marcus, what an interview that you got. She said, I've been here since November of 2022, and my brothers are all police officers. That was the moment I thought, wow. And there she is, all adorned in pink to support Karen. Great job out there, Marcus Espinoza. Thank you for staying late. I really appreciate it. Get some rest. It's over, finally.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Thanks for having me on. I'm going to get some sleep for sure. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet. Maybe a beer or two. Okay, my next guest knows this case inside and out. He's the attorney for the YouTuber/activist who goes by the name Turtle Boy. He's been on this show. He's been involved since day one. You could arguably say he broke this story wide open and led to those supporters that you see, outside court. Mark Bederow, thank you so much for coming back to the program. Wow, did you see this one coming?
I'm not surprised, but I think this case, if you know it carefully and follow it closely, has always been an acquittal case. There's a ton of reasonable doubt that was all over this place, from the poor investigation that was done initially, with some problems, obviously, with the state police, including the lead investigator. And I think more importantly in the second trial than the first trial, an emphasis on science, which all favored the defense in this case. So I'm not surprised. The jury obviously considered it carefully over the course of 4 days, but ultimately I think they got it right.
So, Mark, you listed out a few things that were the reason we had the verdict that we had today, but I want to ask you about another big thing, and that's the guy with the beard she's hugging right there, and that's Alan Jackson. I've been calling him a hotshot attorney because I followed him ever since he prosecuted Phil Spector out in Los Angeles. He knows what he's doing. He's very, very good. Do you put a lot of emphasis on the case that he mounted for her?
Yeah, I mean, I think all her attorneys did an incredible job, but Alan, as the lead attorney, was excellent. I think he gave a riveting summation. His examinations during the trial were spectacular. He's been just a perfect advocate for someone like Karen going through this. But I sincerely believe the entire team was outstanding, and Alan was a perfect leader for that team.
Let me ask you about this, because I kind of feel like Karen Reed would not have done all those media interviews were it not for the okay from Alan Jackson. It's a double-edged sword. I'm wondering if the media interviews led to the not guilty verdicts today, or if she would have gotten them anyway, and the media interviews led to the one guilty verdict for operating under the influence.
I mean, look, any media interviews for a client who has an open case is always perilous, and you saw it in this case. The prosecution made her interviews. They clipped them repeatedly from several interviews and made those a central part of their case. How effective were they? I don't know. Did they factor into the misdemeanor conviction? They could have. She did talk about consuming alcohol in some of those, but there were also videos from her at the bar consuming alcohol. There was an extrapolated blood alcohol test, which presumably showed her over the limit. In terms of the interviews, how much might they have helped in terms of gaining attention? Perhaps a little, but in all fairness, I think overall, the interviews probably did not do her any favors. But again, they were never going to lead to her being convicted. Having her speak about what she believes could have happened or sharing her thoughts about what could be, we're never going to overcome the insurmountable, amount of reasonable doubt based on science and things of that nature. I don't think Karen saying I might have hit him was ever going to conquer that hill of reasonable doubt.
So let me ask you this, because she came out of court and she stood there on the steps, made a very, very quick comment on the open mics in front of the supporters and said, that her mission is to, find justice for John. So what does that look like? Are we going to see an investigation opened up to find somebody else to charge in his death?
I mean, I don't think so, for the simple reason this case was botched so early in the process by the Canton police and followed up by the Massachusetts State Police that the opportunity to catch whomever was responsible for this was lost. I mean, they didn't secure a crime scene. They didn't preserve evidence properly. They didn't try to figure out by going inside the house at 34 Fairview what people may have seen, what they might have said. They didn't knock on neighbors' doors and try to secure video. At this point, 3.5 years later, I think, unfortunately, the O'Keefe family will never get the answers that they certainly are entitled to, and that it's essentially over.
Mark, I have 20 seconds left. What's Karen Reed's life going to be like in Canton? Can she stay there? Is she safe? Does she have a target on her back? Or will she be this rock star with attention she probably doesn't want?
I mean, she doesn't live in Canton. I don't think she'll be staying in Canton. Whether she stays in Massachusetts, who knows? I mean, at this point, she's a public figure. Anytime she goes out, people are going to know who she is. And that's through no choice of her own. Unlike athletes, musicians who become famous, they want to be famous. So, it remains to be seen what she does, whether she stays there or moves on.
Mark Bederow, it's good to talk to you. I really appreciate this. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
It is hard to imagine standing trial for murder, let alone doing that twice. But everything that Karen Reed just had now is behind her. It still lies ahead for Bryan Coberger. And Coberger's lawyers want to keep it lying ahead for as long as humanly possible. Today, they were back and fighting in court to push the start date of his quadruple murder trial. And also, they gave us a little hint of what's ahead if they don't get what they want. Our Brian Enton is live in Boise. He was there for all of this. He's got the insight next. Today, Bryan Kohberger's hearing reminded me, and not for the first time, it reminded me how trials are a lot like a game of chess. The best players are always thinking 2 moves ahead. actually sometimes even 3 or 4 moves ahead. And Coberger's lead attorney, Ann Taylor, is like a grand master. And she showed that skill today in that courtroom while fighting what'll probably amount to a losing battle to get her client's trial delayed. For now, the opening statements are still scheduled for August 11th. And that, by the way, is just 54 days from now. But Team Coberger insists that they must have more time because they got to get through 68 terabytes of evidence. Google terabytes. It's a lot. On top of that, the defense claims an avalanche of bad publicity has poisoned the jury pool there in Boise. An avalanche fueled in part by what they call unauthorized leaks of sealed information about the case. And then Ms. Taylor showed why she gets paid the big bucks, or why she actually would get paid the big bucks if she weren't a public defender. She warned that going to trial this summer would, quote, violate Bryan Kohberger's constitutional rights. And then she said it could lead to, quote, ineffective assistance of counsel. Think about that. It could lead to me not being good enough to defend him. If she doesn't get more time to work on Kohberger's death penalty defense, she says, I literally cannot do my job adequately. And if those phrases sound familiar to you, it's because they are the basis of the vast majority of convictions that end up appealed. Judge Stephen Hippler did not rule from the bench today, but he did tell the defense, in effect, don't get your hopes up.
All right, I'll take the matter under advisement and get an opinion out in short order. In the meantime, I fully encourage everyone to continue as if the trial is going to take place when it is scheduled for. Again, I reserve the right to write the decision that I come to, but as of now, I would tell you that it's likely you're going to trial on the date indicated.
There you have it. Part 2 of today's hearing was completely private, and it was scheduled to deal with the defense's plan to present a theory that there was a, quote, alternate perpetrator at 1122 King Road that night, and not their client, Bryan Kohberger. No ruling yet on that one either, so far as we know. But our Bryan Enton was in court today, living through all those tense moments. He joins me live now from Boise. I can't wait to ask you about this alternate perpetrator, but I have to start with the delay activity because that seems to be the biggest issue right now, and a lot of indications of what might come if Ann Taylor, Coberger's lawyer, doesn't get her way.
Yeah, and you played the sound clip right there. I mean, it's pretty clear the judge is leaning towards not delaying the trial, basically just telling the lawyers flat out, you better be ready August 11th and wait on my written ruling, but you better be ready. So we'll see when the written ruling comes, but I fully believe he's not delaying the trial, just on his mannerisms. I was sitting in there for the whole thing. But Ann Coberger got up there and talked for about 20 minutes or so, explaining every reason there should be a delay. She says they're still getting discovery even last week. She hasn't had time to go through everything. They haven't had time to sufficiently research Bryan Kohberger's past and family members. And then she said she's just not ready, that she can't adequately defend Bryan Kohberger. Think about that. She said it. She cannot adequately defend Bryan Kohberger if this trial happens on August 11th, which you said it perfectly. I mean, obviously, she's setting this up already for an appeal, Ashley.
Well, listen, if anybody's out there saying, boo-hoo, what's your problem? You're a lawyer, get working. 68 terabytes of information is a mountain, and it is extraordinary for anyone, any counsel, any team of dream team lawyers. These are public defenders. They have a caseload. He doesn't have a dream team. So I can understand from her perspective, if she doesn't feel like she can get through all the discovery in time for trial, it would make sense, right? She could legitimately mount an ineffective assistance of counsel appeal. Did it sound as though anybody, especially the judge, cared about that issue? Because no one's going to want that. Even the families who want this thing to happen, they're not going to want it to unhappen.
I mean, he listened. He certainly seemed, he kind of actually had his head like this for some of it. I mean, he was listening. They had already filed the briefs on it, so he basically knew what she was going to say. My big question, Ashley, that I was sitting there waiting, if she wants the delay so badly, why not say how long you want? I need another 3 months. I need another 6 months to really do this the right way. That's why I wonder, is this just another tactic? They've been trying to delay it all along. Does she get a little delay? Does she keep on trying? Does she keep on trying? Because why not give it to the timeline and say, we figured it out and we actually need this much time. And let me tell you, I was in the courtroom months ago when she agreed to this date. And she said, yes, we can be ready to go on August 11th. And she agreed to it. They worked through it together, both sides, and they both picked the date.
Yeah, devil's advocate here. I guess lots of discovery has been piling into her office maybe since then, and that's why she's saying, well, I didn't expect this, load of files behind me that I got to read line for line in order to save this man's life. Because let's not forget, this is death penalty. The stakes could not possibly be higher. But let's get to that alternative perpetrator business. Walk me through that. Are they giving us any indication of who this person might be and where they sort of emerged from?
Well, I wish I could tell you more, because we were up there, 5th floor for the hearing, and then what happens with these secret hearings is they make us all leave. We all have to leave, and then they go into the secret hearing, so we don't know what happened. We know for sure that it was about the alternate perpetrators and the defense coming forward, and I have heard through sources that it is actually alternate perpetrators, plural, names that she has brought forward to the judge that she wants to say could possibly be responsible for the murders. But we don't know who those people are. It's probably a good thing they keep it secret, obviously, because you don't want to just start throwing names out in the public when Bryan Coberger is the only person who's been charged, and based on all the evidence we've seen, is the only person involved. So I wish I had more to give you. It's very interesting, though, and the judge is going to have to make a ruling on it. He's going to have to decide whether she's allowed to bring these names in publicly during the trial. Yeah.
I think that's the kind of thing I stick by, that being quiet, because that will destroy lives. If they decide to start throwing spaghetti at the fridge and it's got a name on each of those noodles, those are lives that will go down in flames on the internet and then maybe even in person. Those people will be targeted by who. Bryan, great job. If you hear anything more, let us know, but appreciate you going out there for that hearing today.
Yeah. Thanks, Ash.
Okie dokie. Still to come on this program. She told police that she was targeted for being too good looking. But I have seen the charges against this Chicago area high school teacher, and looks do not come up once. She's accused of grooming a 14-year-old student, and count after count, page after page, lists the allegations that this teacher had sex with the boy dozens and dozens of times. Even the judge called the details appalling, and there's her husband holding her hand. Wait till you hear why he may not have been holding her hand after he heard what he was about to hear behind those doors at the courthouse. That's next. You may remember back in March when we introduced you to a special ed teacher and high school soccer coach in Downers Grove, Illinois, just west of Chicago. She had a run-in at the time with some local police in her driveway, and her husband was sitting there in the passenger seat of the car. Have a listen.
Am I in trouble? Like, I'm so lost right now. I'm sure you are. Like I said, I can't answer any questions right now. I'll just tell you that right now you're making things. Oh my God.
Now, things got real fast for Christina Formella after she was accused of having sex with a 15-year-old student. Police thought it was a one-time thing in Formella's classroom before school, and certainly once is one time too many when you're talking about an underage student and his teacher. So an arrest and an investigation and prosecution and a suspension all seemed more than warranted, right? But 3 months into this thing, it turns out once wasn't the half of it. It was more like 1/45th of it. Yesterday, Ms. Formella was back in an Illinois courtroom facing a newly unsealed indictment with dozens and dozens of additional charges. And prosecutors now say she molested her alleged victim more than 45 times, both at the school and inside the home that she shares with her husband. Investigators say they uncovered, quote, several hundred, if not thousand, text messages, allegedly showing her grooming, apparently when the boy was just 14. At one point, Ms. Formella allegedly told the boy that her husband was having an affair with her best friend and that when that husband left her, she'd get millions of dollars. Another time, she allegedly texted that she had no intention of marrying that husband of hers. But she also sent the boy text messages while she was traveling in Italy, prosecutors say, a trip during which she was actually getting married. The authorities say Ms. Formella told the boy to turn off the location sharing features on his phone while they were hooking up, which any prosecutor will tell you screams consciousness of guilt. If you are counting, Christina Formella now faces a total of 55 charges, including 20 counts each of criminal sexual assault and aggravated sexual abuse. The judge actually calls the allegations, quote, horrifying and shocking and appalling. And that husband I talked about, she and the defendant actually walked into court hand in hand. No idea if he knew what was coming during this hearing. As for what happened after the appearance, I turned to a true crime digital creator who was there and who's been on this story from the get-go. Her name is Abby Escobar. She goes by the handle online, Abby Blabby. Okay, first of all, they're holding hands, Abby, heading into court. Do you know if A, he knew of the sheer number of encounters that are being alleged, and B, if he knew anything about that whole I'll take him for millions when I leave him?
Ashley, I don't think he had a clue the severity of what was going on until the prosecutor read everything off in the court hearing yesterday. I think he was just as shocked as everybody else.
So he came in holding hands. She would, of course, go to defense table. He would be in the gallery. What happened? Did he stick around?
You know, it was odd because at previous hearings, they have all sat together in the back, but when I got up to leave, I saw Michael's father, but I did not see him. So either he didn't even go into the room, which wouldn't make any sense, or he might have gotten up and left.
So in this case, there was a lot of evidence, you know, not even all of it, but, you know, enough for the hearing that was brought out in court. And one thing really stood out to me, maybe more stood out to you, but it was a video, apparently, that this teacher allegedly sent to this kid. And it was really graphic. Best you can, knowing that we're on television, can you describe what the video actually contained?
Yeah, so the prosecutor said that when she couldn't physically abuse him, she would send him little reminders such as pictures and videos of herself, including one where she was taking care of herself while saying his name.
Also known as masturbating, right? Like, we're covering the Diddy trial, so now we've pretty much said a lot of this stuff already. But is it correct to describe it? She's masturbating on video while holding a photo of him, and that she allegedly sent him that video of all that business?
So she sent him a video of herself masturbating, saying his name. She sent him numerous videos and photos, apparently, and even asked that he do the same in return.
No, that's never good. There's business here that I saw in court about Ms. Formella being concerned that, or at least telling this young boy, allegedly, that a neighbor of hers had faced similar charges and that she was fearful. Is that accurate? Because if it is, it suggests she knows exactly what's going on and how wrong it is. And then we have this scene in the cruiser saying, what the heck is happening? I can't imagine.
Right. So that is what she told the victim. Whether it was true or not, only she knows. She fabricated many stories along the way in order to control him and get him to stay with her. But let me look here. On November 4th of 2023, she sent him a text message telling him that a neighbor of hers just got caught for doing the same thing, and now she's scared. But that obviously didn't stop her.
Abby, this is unbelievable. She's facing up to 60 years in prison, but right now she's out. She got bail. She has to wear GPS monitoring, due back in court August 4th. So can you make a date to talk to us again?
Absolutely. I have every intention of going.
Oh, good. Okay, Abby Escobar. It's in my calendar already. Thanks so much. Abby Blabby is how you find Abby online. Her TikToks are great. Thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you again, Abby.
Thank you, Ashley.
Coming up next. We'll see you soon. So we all watched as the devil in the Ozarks waltzed out of an Arkansas prison wearing a makeshift uniform, only to be caught by marshals 12 days later. His face and his knees in the mud as they cuffed him and brought him back to jail. So how is it exactly that he's pleading not guilty to escape? You heard me. That's what he says. Wasn't me. And I've also got details on how he got that fake uniform in the first place. And man, is it crafty. That's all next. He was caught on camera escaping from prison. And then weeks later, he was caught on camera being cuffed by the marshals in the woods, muddy and exhausted. So what do you suppose that fugitive rapist and murderer told the judge when they hauled him into court to add escape charges to his record? Not guilty. Didn't do it. It wasn't me. Oh, I'm not exactly sure how Grant Hardin plans to back that plea up, given that the cops have 12 whole days of evidence that they had to track him out in the wilderness while he was on the run. You remember Grant Hardin, right? The former small-town police chief turned convicted rapist and murderer who did this. He strolled out of prison wearing a makeshift lawman's uniform. We saw the charging documents for second-degree escape, and we got a few clues as to how he got that fake uniform in the first place. Officials say they think his job in the prison kitchen gave him access to things like tea and coffee and magic markers to transform a white jail uniform into what we all saw he was wearing on camera, escaping. Of course, 30 years as a cop meant that he knew all about the routines and the patrols and the badges of fellow cops. The judge has now set a date for his newest trial on escape charges in early November. Oh, and by the way, they also chose to lock him up in a different facility, the Arkansas Supermax, a prison, not a jail. Alexandra Kazarian is a criminal defense attorney. She's here with me now. I would not want to be his court-appointed attorney. Alexandra, we all saw him walking out in this uniform. We all saw him being caught and cuffed in the mud by the marshals. How do you fight this?
Sometimes you're just playing for a fumble. Maybe he knows that there's somebody that was part of his plan that they need in order to prove that he escaped, and he knows that person isn't going to want to come in to testify. Or maybe he's just making him prove it because he's got nothing else to do. But why not? Sometimes the last place team beats the first place team because of a fluke.
Yeah, I see these pictures of him with his, tummy and his boobs all muddy. And I'm like, dude, you were an escapee, caught with our very own eyes. Is there a win here? Or, is there a win or a lose in this strategy? Or does he just get some field trips out of his lockup to go to court? And that's just fun for a guy who's basically condemned to 50 years in prison.
Well, exactly. What else is there for him to do? And if he thinks that he's going to be in prison for the rest of his life, then he might as well have fun making everybody have a bad time while he's around. And it doesn't hurt if he loses.
Yeah, wow. You're right. What's he got to lose? Why not? Like you said, it could be fun. Alexandra, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm glad you're not the attorney, and I feel for the one who is.
Thank you.
All right, so the next time Grant Hardin walks into a courtroom, it is a safe bet that he's going to be dressed in a prison jumpsuit, which is a far cry from what this guy in Texas decided to wear for his court appearance. Can you read that? World's best farter. Are you kidding me? How do you suppose that went over with the felony court judge?
What made you think that was a good shirt to wear to court this morning?
The rest of the dressing down from the judge and what this little stunt actually cost this jack-off. That's coming up after the break. You know, I know a lot of judges, and most of them appreciate a joke or a funny story or, say, a novelty T-shirt as much as the next guy outside the courtroom. But on the bench, they are all business, and high on their list of no laughing matters is decorum, proper etiquette in court. You know, procedure and attire, they're all strictly enforced from small claims to the Court of Appeals. So how do you think this guy's attire went over when he showed up in felony court in Texas? Read the T-shirt carefully. World's best farter. Do you think the judge got a chuckle out of this? See for yourself.
What made you think that was a good shirt to wear to court this morning? That's all you could find? That's all, the only shirt you had in your closet? World's best farter.
Yep, you heard it. Judge said it. World's best farter. We actually do not know exactly what charges this defendant is facing, but it is felony court. But whatever he is facing, I'm going to say this. If you can't dress to impress, at least don't go out of your way to piss off a judge. Because this judge decided to hold over the gas bag's case for 30 days so that he can get a proper wardrobe, and while he's at it, maybe a lawyer to boot, because he might need one. All right, so real quickly tomorrow, Diddy's case was weird today. One of the jurors had a vertigo issue, so court quit right away, but not before we learned a few things. And that is that the Punisher, one of the escorts who we've interviewed on this show, he just found out this week that he was on video, one of the videos, the Freakoff videos, and did not expect it. He's my guest tomorrow to talk about this. It's also on my podcast. Check it out. I got a big Karen Reed wrap-up with Vinnie Politan, too. Check it out, Drop Dead Serious, and stay tuned for Cuomo.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.